Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we are back once again with another Inimba episode recap and review. And honestly, guys, today's episode was one of those episodes where you sit down thinking you're just going to watch a little family drama, and before you know it, everybody is hiding something, everybody is suspicious of somebody, and you're sitting there asking yourself, who can we actually trust anymore? Welcome back to another Inimba recap, and today we're talking about the latest episode from August 18, 2026. The drama continues to turn up the pressure, especially around Sydney, Lwandle and the secrets that have been slowly coming to the surface. And let me tell you right now, there are moments in this episode where I honestly wanted to pause the television and say, wait a minute. Did that really just happen? So grab your snacks, get comfortable, and let's get straight into today's episode. The episode starts with tension. The episode opens with that familiar feeling that something is seriously wrong. Nobody is completely relaxed. You can almost feel the tension between the characters before they even start speaking. And that's what makes Inimba so interesting at the moment. The characters aren't simply dealing with one problem. They are dealing with the consequences of decisions that were made earlier, and every new revelation creates another problem. Sydney, in particular, is in a difficult position. He has already been forced to question the people around him, and the situation involving Lwandle has made things even more complicated. Sydney isn't just angry. He's trying to understand how everything reached this point. And honestly, I think that is what makes his storyline so interesting. Because when somebody you trusted disappoints you, the biggest question isn't always, what did they do? Sometimes the bigger question is, how long have they been doing it behind my back? And that is exactly the feeling surrounding Sydney in this episode. Sydney continues to question everything. As the episode moves forward, Sydney is clearly not willing to simply forget everything that has happened. He wants answers. And I can't blame him. Because once trust is broken, every little thing starts looking suspicious. A simple conversation can suddenly have a hidden meaning. A phone call can make you wonder who is really on the other side. And even someone's silence can become suspicious. Sydney is now looking at the people around him differently. You can tell that he is trying to put the pieces together. And guys, this is where I started thinking. Sydney is getting closer to the truth, but is he ready for what he is going to discover? Because sometimes the truth gives you peace. But sometimes the truth destroys whatever peace you had left. Lwandle's situation gets even more complicated. Then we get to Lwandle. And honestly, Lwandle's storyline is becoming one of the biggest sources of tension in the show. The problem is that the situation is no longer something that can simply be hidden away. There are consequences. People are asking questions. And the more pressure builds, the harder it becomes for Lwandle to control the situation. This is what makes the episode so interesting. Lwandle is caught between trying to protect himself and dealing with the consequences of his actions. And whenever a character reaches that point, you know something bigger is coming. Because secrets can survive when only one person knows about them. But once several people start asking questions, that's when everything begins to fall apart. The family pressure continues. And just when you think the episode is going to focus completely on Sydney and Lwandle, the wider family drama comes back into the picture. That's one thing Inimba does extremely well. It doesn't allow one storyline to exist by itself. Everything is connected. One person's decision affects another person. One secret creates another lie. And one lie eventually creates an even bigger problem. The family members are forced to deal with uncomfortable truths, and you can see that the relationships are becoming increasingly fragile. People are no longer simply arguing about what happened. They're questioning each other's loyalty. And that's a completely different level of conflict. Zoleka and Lazarus also face pressure. Meanwhile, Zoleka and Lazarus continue dealing with their own complicated situation. Their relationship has already been through so much, and now the pressure from the people around them makes things even more difficult. The big issue is trust. Can they actually move forward while there are still so many unresolved problems? Or are the secrets surrounding them eventually going to destroy everything? And honestly, I don't think either of them can continue pretending that everything is fine. There is too much history. Too many emotions. And too many people with their own agendas. The more I watch this storyline, the more I feel like something major is being prepared. The tension builds. As the episode continues, the conversations become more serious. People are no longer talking casually. They're asking direct questions. They're demanding explanations. And this is where the episode really starts to pick up. You can see that certain characters are becoming desperate. They know that the truth is getting closer. And whenever somebody starts becoming desperate in a drama like Inimba, you already know they might make a terrible decision. That's the scary part. Because when people feel like they are losing control, they don't always make logical choices. Sometimes they make emotional choices. And those choices usually come back to haunt them. Sydney's anger. Sydney's emotions are another major part of today's episode. He's clearly hurt. And there is a difference between being angry and being betrayed. Anger can disappear after an argument. But betrayal, that stays with you. Sydney is trying to understand the situation, but at the same time you can see that his patience is running out. And I'm telling you, when Sydney finally reaches his limit, somebody is going to have a serious problem. Because the longer he keeps everything inside, the bigger the explosion is going to be. And I have a feeling that we're not far away from that moment. Wandel under pressure. Wandel, meanwhile, finds himself in an increasingly difficult position. He can simply walk away from the situation. Too many people know too much. And once your actions start affecting other people, it becomes much harder to control the story. That's exactly what seems to be happening here. The walls are closing in. And I think the writers are deliberately putting Wandel in this position because eventually something has to give. Either he tells the truth, or somebody else reveals it for him. And personally, I think the second option would be much more explosive. Imagine Sydney finding out the full truth from someone else instead of hearing it directly from Wandel. That would be absolute chaos. The biggest question of the episode. The biggest question coming out of today's episode is simple. Who is going to reveal the truth first? Sydney is suspicious. Wandel is under pressure. The family is already dealing with tension. And everybody seems to have their own version of events. That is a dangerous combination. Because when several people know different pieces of the same secret, eventually those pieces come together. And when they do, boom, everything changes. My reaction to today's episode. Now, let me give you my honest opinion. I think today's episode did a really good job of building suspense. It wasn't just about one huge shocking moment. It was about creating pressure. You could feel that the characters were moving towards something bigger. And that's actually what makes a good soap episode. You don't always need explosions or dramatic confrontations. Sometimes all you need is two people sitting across from each other, both knowing that something is wrong, but neither one willing to say it. That kind of tension can be even more powerful. And that's what Inimba is doing right now. Who can Sydney trust? Another thing I'm wondering is whether Sydney can actually trust the people around him. Because right now, his biggest problem isn't only Wandel. It's the possibility that there are other people involved. And if Sydney starts investigating everybody, things could become very dangerous. Sometimes when a person discovers one betrayal, they start looking for more. They start checking old conversations. They remember things people said months ago. They start connecting events that previously seemed completely unrelated. And that's where Sydney appears to be heading. He's becoming suspicious of everything. And honestly, I don't think that's going to end peacefully. What could happen next? Now let's talk about our predictions. Because after today's episode, I have several theories. First, I think Sydney is going to keep pushing for answers. He's not going to simply forget what happened. Second, I think Wandal's situation is going to become even more difficult. The pressure is already building, and eventually he will have to make a choice. Does he confess? Does he continue hiding the truth? Or does he try to blame somebody else? And third, I think there could be another person who knows more than they're admitting. That would be a classic Inimba twist. We think the story is about Sydney and Wandal, only to discover that somebody else has been watching everything from the shadows. The cliffhanger. And this is exactly why the next episode is going to be interesting. Because the biggest question isn't whether the truth will come out. The question is, what happens when it finally does? Will Sydney forgive Wandal? Will the family turn against him? Will somebody else be exposed? Or will the situation become even bigger than anyone expected? At this point, I honestly wouldn't trust anybody. Because in Inimba, just when you think you've figured out the truth, another secret comes out. And that's exactly what keeps us coming back. Final thoughts. Overall, today's Inimba episode continued to build the tension around Sydney and Wandal while keeping the wider family drama moving forward. The biggest theme for me was definitely trust. Who deserves it? Who has broken it? And who is pretending to be loyal while secretly protecting their own interests? Those are the questions that make this storyline so addictive. And personally, I think we're heading toward a much bigger confrontation. Sydney is getting closer. Wandal is under pressure. The family relationships are becoming more fragile. And sooner or later, somebody is going to crack. And when that happens, guys, I think we're going to get one of those Inimba moments that everybody will be talking about. OUTRO. But that's my recap and review of today's Inimba episode. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about Sydney and Wandal's situation? Do you think Wandal will finally tell the truth? Or do you think he's going to try to hide everything for as long as possible? And most importantly, who do you think Sydney should trust? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I always love reading your theories. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next Inimba recap. And of course, come back for the next episode because if the pressure continues building like this, we could be heading toward a massive confrontation. Until then, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next recap. Bye everyone.